Ladies and gentlemen, it's a pleasure to introduce a UFC Hall of Famer, UFC 10 and UFC 11 tournament champion, the first ever heavyweight champion, a Prix 2000 Grand Prix Open tournament winner. He is the Godfather of Ground and Pound. Mark Coleman, welcome to Submission Radio.
Well, thank you, sir. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks so much for coming on the show, Mark. It's really great to have you on the show. Mark, for all the listeners around the world, and especially in Australia and New Zealand, we just want to have a quick chat about some of the highlights in your career. We just want to discuss a couple of your greatest moments. Now, your first fight in MMA was in the UFC at UFC 10. What drew you to compete in that tournament? And tell us about what it was like backstage warming up, knowing that you were going to go out there in front of the world.
Well, it was definitely a completely new experience. One that, I didn't really know what to expect. I did compete all my life, and I did grow up as a kid wanting to be, I guess, a tough guy. I didn't want to be a bully or anything like that, but, just to be able to, protect, my family. And, basically, the UFC turned up on TV, pay-per-view, and I was an Olympic caliber wrestler at the time, and we always believed that we were the toughest guys out there. And I got the phone call, and I got a chance to on UFC 10. I got a chance to showcase what I could do in a different sport, and that was fighting. And I was out there to prove and represent my sport of wrestling and show that we are versatile. And I was able to, I didn't have any coaches. I coached myself. I made my own game plan. I went out there and I tried to execute it as best I could. And fortunately for me, it worked out. And it was just a great night. UFC 10 was a great night for me.
Oh, absolutely. It was a historic moment in MMA history, Mark, and something that a lot of the fans around the world really enjoy watching back. Now, you won a number of tournaments and became the first ever heavyweight champion of the world. When you won the title, did you have any idea that MMA was going to be as big as it is today?
Well, me personally, I always, right when I got into the sport, I loved wrestling, and I always thought that was the greatest sport in the world, but once I was put in the position to be an ultimate fighter in the cage, I didn't think there was anything that could really top that. Being there, being able to showcase and take the risk of what it involves to get inside that cage, and what you're putting on the line. I personally felt like it was the greatest sport in the world, and I knew they had some problems, obviously, with the political reasons, but Dana White and the Prix brothers and Bob Meyer was way back when he first started the UFC. These guys worked very hard to, turn this into a legitimate sport where it's being represented all across the world. And if they could have beat the hurdles, I'm not surprised where it's at, because there is nothing like mixed martial arts. Nothing. There's nothing that can compare to competing in the cage.
Absolutely. And, the effects are still being felt. I mean, obviously here in Melbourne, the cage just recently got legalized, which is another huge milestone for us. Mark, you had really memorable battles in Pride after leaving the UFC. What drove you to leave the UFC, and did it have anything to do with the controversial loss you had to Pedro Rizzo that made you want to go to a different company?
Well, that's exactly what drove me away from the UFC, but I certainly never wanted to leave the UFC. I was incredibly happy fighting for this organization, but the loss to Pedro Rizzo forced them to release me, and I had no choice but to find a different job and go fight in Pride. But my goal. Pride was great. I mean, it was amazing. It was incredible. Had some great shows, but my goal was always I am from America, so I really wanted to find my way back to the UFC and prove that, you know, I went through a bad little streak there, and but to this day, I still personally feel like I beat Pedro Rizzo that night. But it was a part of my career. You can't look back on that. It changed the whole path of my career, or maybe I never would have left UFC, but it did give me the opportunity to look into a different company and see what I could do over in Pride. But I was very proud to make it as long as I did and get back into the UFC when it was to the point where it's mainstream. And I'm just so proud to be a part of the history of this and how far it's come. I don't think there's no limit, and I think it's going to be around for a long time, and it's just going to continue to climb, because I think the whole world understands. You know, sometimes you watch a sport and you don't understand cricket or whatever you're watching, so it's not so fun to watch. But I think the whole world understands fighting. You know, it's complicated for sure, but basically it's you know, people like to see other guys, people do damage to another person, and whoever does the most damage usually gets the win. And you know, I don't personally see how you can top that. That's about the ultimate challenge you can ever have.
Absolutely, Mark. For a couple of Aussies, we're not big fans of cricket either. And, you know, you mentioned that you had no choice but to go to Pride. And in respect, you know, it was a blessing in disguise. You had so many great moments in Pride. One of the moments I want to ask you about is when you won the 2000 Grand Prix Open tournament. Take us into what that night was like for you. I mean, it's one of the biggest achievements that you could really achieve in MMA. You know, what was going through your mind as you were getting closer and closer to the finals and finally won the event?
Well, exactly. I was given the opportunity to make a comeback, because it was some horrible times when I lost to Pedro Rizzo and was cut from the UFC. I was devastated. I sometimes I doubted myself, and I felt maybe I was too old at that point. I was only 31 years old. And, you know, you start to have doubts. And, but I was given the opportunity by Pride. I think they brought me in just as probably a big name to fill up the card. But they gave me 8 to 10 months notice that I was going to be in the tournament. And I took it as an opportunity to really commit myself to try to win this thing, and whenever I did commit myself and prepare properly and train right, I usually did pretty good. So it was a great relief for me, because I didn't like the way my career was going at the time, and I really didn't like the way people were. I didn't like being called old and washed up and finished, especially at the age of 31. So it gave me a chance to redeem myself and show the world that I'm still, at the time, I was considered, I guess, the best in the world when I won that. And that's something that I dreamed about all my life, is being the best in the world at something. And that's what I felt that night. It's something that obviously I'll never forget. I mean, I think that showed by the emotional celebration afterwards. You know, some people want to call it embarrassing. I could care less if it was embarrassing. It was the funnest, embarrassing time of my life, because it was truly amazing.
We could only imagine, you know, what you were going through at that time, you know, and that in itself was iconic as well. You know, Pride is known as for being, you know, like the wild, wild west of MMA. From all your experiences there, do you have any funny stories from your time with the company?
Oh, I don't know. You know, to be quite honest with you, I'm not really in the funny story mood right now. I'm kind of dealing with, I'm dealing with, you know, quite a situation here, and you know, it's just there was great times over at Pride. Boss Rutan coming home from any one of the fights. Once the fights were over, we all jammed onto the bus, and a lot of guys that fought each other were on the same bus, and a lot of times old Boss Rutan would take the microphone and he would lead he would lead the way back to the hotel after it was all over, and it was just so cool because everybody just bonded so much, and the fighting community was so tight. It was just so tight back then because we were all fighting for the same goal, to become a legitimate sport and to become what it has become today. So there's just so many friends and people that I got to meet over the years and places I got to go. Unfortunately, I never have made it to Australia, but just because of fighting and because of wrestling, I've been able to travel the world and see and meet all these great people. So there's funny stories, but it's been a rough couple of days here lately, my friend. I just got out of the hip surgery, and it just kind of has a tendency to bring you down a little bit, I guess. But I'm hanging in there. I'm not complaining.
Absolutely, Mark. And we want to have a chat about the situation in a second. We just have a couple of, when we let the fans know that Mark Coleman was coming on the show, we got a whole bunch of fan questions. We just have a couple of quick fan questions we want to ask you, and then we want to have a little bit of a chat about the situation that you're in, if that's okay with you. Okay. I've got a question here from one fan whose username is Hammer for Life, which is pretty cool. I thought we definitely have to choose this person's question. His question is, Mark,
Hammer for blood?
No, Hammer for Life.
Hammer for Life.
Well, yeah, that's pretty neat. That's pretty neat. I'll try to loosen up here, but there's no need for me to sit here, and be down. I'm doing it. It's an honor to be doing an interview with you guys, and I wish I could be on my game and tell some decent stories, but just in a little bit of pain right now, and so go ahead, Hammer for Life. Yeah, I dig the name. I approve of that name for sure. It's pretty cool.
Excellent. I think somewhere a listener right now just had the best moment of his life hearing you say that. Now, his question is, Mark, recently Joe Rogan said that he believed that it was highly likely that Fedor may have been on PEDs in his career. As someone who's fought him twice, what do you think about Joe's comments about Fedor?
He said that he was on PEDs and what else?
Well, Joe Rogan basically said that he thought it was likely that Fedor was on PEDs in his career, and Hammer for Life was just wondering, what you think about that, considering you fought Fedor a couple of times.
Well, I don't really have too much to comment on that. Joe Rogan, I don't know what his reasoning was in bringing that up. Just did somebody ask him that question, or did he just feel like he decided he needed to make his observation on the subject?
Yeah, it was one of those situations.
It doesn't really matter to me. I just know that I know the guy was one of the toughest, baddest fighters in the world for quite some period of time, and I don't know if he'd ever failed any drug test. It doesn't really matter at this point. It's a problem right now that they're trying to deal with, and I think they'll get it under control and handle it. But it's really not part of Fedor's resume, and I just look at him as possibly the greatest fighter of all time for a 10-year span, and who knows? He probably could have went a little longer, but you're champion for 10 years. It's just hard to stay so focused for so long and continue to be the champion. It had to come to an end at some time, but it doesn't take away anything from what Fedor did. And the PEDs, I really don't have any comment on it because I don't know nothing. I don't know nothing about Fedor's history or what he did in the past. So that's Joe Rogan, and I don't have a problem with Joe Rogan bringing it up. That's his opinion. So I guess he felt the need to bring it up, and that's that. Yeah, I don't have an opinion on it.
No, absolutely. Hey, since we're on the subject, Mark, what are your thoughts on the PED situation in MMA? Do you think it's becoming a problem? Obviously, there's been a lot of tests that came back positive, most notably Anderson Silva. A lot of fans are wondering, do you think PEDs have always been in the sport, or is it just something that's happening now, or is it just better testing and people are getting caught out?
I think PEDs are pretty much in every sport, not just MMA. I think PEDs have been around for forever, and they're a part of every sport. Currently, we're talking about MMA, so yes, it's giving a bad eye to the sport, and they're going to have to do something to clean it up, or else people are not going to accept it. So I think they're working real hard. And from what I understand, the last show, they not only urine test, they blood test every competitor on the card, and that's what it's going to take. It's going to take. They're going to, if you want to put an end to it, you're going to have to give a lot more tests, and you're going to have to do the blood test. And these things cost money, so they're going to have to spend money to probably get it under control, because. Like I said, it's involved in every sport, and yes, it's obviously probably part of MMA, but they can and they will clean it up. So they need to do that so the sport can continue to climb and stay legitimate, just like any sport out there. I don't know much about cricket though. Do they use PEDs in cricket?
Well,
I'll be honest, I don't follow cricket enough to know whether they're using PEDs. But
if they do, then it's sad.
Australia, it's not a big cricket country.
Nah, it's a huge cricket country. It's a lot of agility.
Who am I confusing you with? England?
Yeah, England, New Zealand, India, Pakistan. There's a heated World Cup, happening. Well, it just happened, so everyone's very passionate. Hundreds of thousands of people going to games for hours and hours.
Yes, I know. That's what I'm getting at. I respect all sports, and I'm not ripping on cricket at all, because I like it, and I spent some time in England, and there wasn't a whole lot of TV to watch, and I tried to figure out the game, watching it on TV, and I played baseball back here in America, so it's not baseball, but there's some similarities there, and I did try to figure out how the game's played, and actually someday I'd like to even learn more about it, because it's a fascinating game to me, and I just do that in there to you wanted a funny story, whatever. I tried to be a little funny here, but the PED thing, it's not a funny situation, but I think the UFC and everybody's working together to up the standards, and it's going to cost money to put out these random drug tests. And if they want to clean the sport up, that's what they're going to have to do. And I think they'll do it. And then the fighters will realize if you have to fight clean. But PEDs have been around for forever.
Yeah, I definitely agree with what you said, Mark, about it being, in all sports, not just, exclusive to MMA. I've got one more fan question from Takedown Repeat. Takedown Repeat's question is, as an innovator in MMA, Mark, I just want to hear your thoughts about the progression of women's MMA, if you're a fan, and what you make of everybody discussing how Ronda Rousey could potentially beat a man in MMA.
Wow, that's just Ronda Rousey. That's a name that it just stands out. If she continues this pace for a little bit longer, this is a lady going to be considered the greatest female athlete in the history of sports, and what she's done is truly amazing. And at this point, you don't want to say that somebody's unbeatable, but she certainly looks unbeatable at this point. She could obviously get maybe caught or something like that, but she's just an incredible athlete, and I hope that you're going to need a lot more Ronda Rouseys to carry the women's MMA. You're going to need more stars to stand out and take center stage for the women's MMA to grow. But right now, she's carrying women's MMA, and she definitely a lot of women should be happy with her, because she put them on the map, and she made it a real legit sport. And yes, I feel these girls are very talented, they know a hell of a lot more than I did back when I was fighting, and they're highly skilled athletes, and they deserve to be in there, and I'm glad they are in there.
And with Ronda, like you said, she's been incredibly dominant thus far, undefeated. Almost all her fights finishes in the first round. There's been a lot of discussion recently about how potentially she could, fight, not actually fight man, but she could have the ability to beat the man and, beat flyweights and things like that. What do you think about that? Is it possible, or do you think no?
Well, that's a tough question, and I'm going to have to say firmly that I don't see Ronda Rousey beating the number one ranked man in her weight class. But I guess it maybe depends on how far down the rankings you go, and depends on who the opponent's going to be. I would assume it'd have to be definitely a way lesser ranked man, and somebody maybe not even ranked, because I think she would have her hands full with any of these guys are ranked in the top 10, 20, maybe even higher. She's great, but there's just I just see there's a difference between the men and the woman, and I think she would have her hands full, and I don't think it's nice to talk about, but unfortunately, I don't think we're ever going to get a chance to see that. I'm certain the UFC would never risk putting her out there with another man. I guess you never know, but we're never going to get to see it. Probably her fight another man. So it's just something you can maybe talk about. I think she would have her hands full for sure with any of the top guys. Maybe if she dropped way down in the rankings, it might be an interesting fight. Yes, she's pretty incredible. Since she stepped on that mat, what she's done is nobody's ever done it. So right now she's right now one of a kind.
One of a kind, absolutely. Now, Mark, final question from the fans. Nighthawk 33 would like to know, Mark, you've had so many great achievements. You've done so many great things. What stands out to you as the highlight in your career? What's the one moment in your mind that stands out over all the others?
It's hard to separate a lot of them because, like I said, I think at the beginning of this interview, just to get in that cage, and when they lock the cage and it's all on the line with the lights on, and it's a different feeling. It's not like doing it in practice. You actually get the chance to do it in the UFC octagon cage with everybody watching. It's a completely different story. And I've had some big wins, 10, 11, 12, and then the Grand Prix. They're all just so close. But the one that that really maybe is going to surprise some people. But I wanted to, you don't ever think people forget that they're going to get old and their career's going to end. You think you can go on forever. Now I was certainly one of those type of people, and when I got that win over Stephan Bonner in UFC 100, I think I was 44 years of age. Well, it just really it gave me spark back into my life, and I felt like I was going to become the champion again, and this and that. And so they're all big, but the win over Bonner really meant a lot to me because I did it at the age of 44, and my body was taped together with some duct tape or some magic tape, and I was, I still pulled it off, and the feeling I got afterwards is something you can't describe. I felt like I was 21 again, and I felt like I was going to keep fighting for a long, long time, and you don't tell this sport when you're going to retire. It retires you. The sport, it will retire you at some stage. So, that's what all these young fighters out there need to realize. The clock is ticking, and it'll start ticking faster. The older you get, it's going to tick even faster. And when they pull the plug on you, it's not a pleasant day for most people. It's not something you like to be taken away from you. Is the ability to go out there and because there's a lot of emotions and everything that can be released in that cage. It's unlike any other sport. And when it is taken away from you, well, that's when you really learn how to respect it more than when you're doing it, you don't respect it as much. But when it was taken away from you, that's when you really, it's just hard not to miss. And I think you can ask just about any fighter, do they miss it? No, of course they're going to miss it. And they wish they could get back in there. That's just the way it is. That's how great of a sport it is, I think.
Yeah, and that's completely understandable. And obviously, Mark, throughout your whole career, you've demonstrated that you are pretty much the definition of toughness. Recently, you've had a few health issues. You're currently going through them at the moment. For the fans who may not know, can you tell us a little bit about what you're going through at the moment?
Well, it's been a long process. I hate getting on. I don't like getting on here and complaining about injuries because I fully, when I was a little kid, I set my goals. I looked at my idols and who I wanted to be like and who I wanted to be. And, it seemed like a lot of them were walking a little bit crooked. And I realized I understood that more as I got older. I expected to be walking crooked or having a lot of injuries that are going to come back and get you when you do start reaching that age and the clock is ticking. And yes, the injuries. I thought I could beat them, but and I was fairly healthy most of my career. I've only had 3 surgeries, and to me, I think I got out of the sport pretty clean. But the last one kind of really sealed the coffin shut. Or I feel like I'd still be fighting maybe over in Australia today. But when I finally got an MRI taken of my hip, which had been bothering me probably for the last 7 years of my career, I just fought through it and got the therapy and kept going. And that's what all fighters do. They just keep going. But when the MRI said the hip's gone, there's not much you can do. When your hips, basically I beat myself up. I gave quite a bit out there to the whole wrestling sport, and then to the fighting. And I say you got to pay to play, and that's why I can't complain because when you get your arm raised, it's worth all the potential damage you're doing to your body. And it finally caught up to me, and arthritis had gotten to my hip, and they told me it's done. You're done. Your hip's gone, and you need surgery tomorrow. This was about 2 years ago when I first got my hip surgery. But then, so for about 2 years, I had a hip replacement, and it felt great. I was happy with it. But sometimes I even forgot that I had it there, and I wanted so bad to get into the cage and fight again that I actually did. I got invited to do the Ultimate Fighter Tough Show with BJ Penn as the wrestling coach, and I probably shouldn't have got out there and wrestled with these guys, but I couldn't resist. I couldn't resist the temptation, and the hip held up. My hip held up great. I couldn't believe I kind of forgot I even had a. Don't get me wrong. I knew it was sore, but it didn't pop out of place or anything. And I was able to. It was the closest thing to competing, and coaching the Tough Show was about as close as you get to competing, and we wanted to win. So I didn't like standing. I didn't like being a coach that stood on the sidelines. Everybody knows I can yell pretty good, but when people weren't getting it, I couldn't resist grabbing on and showing them that the move does work. And but maybe it wasn't the smartest thing I ever did because I think I did some damage to the replacement, and now recently. As a matter of fact, I just had I had to go in and get because the hip had popped out after the show was over. My hip had popped out, 6 times in the last year, and the surgeon warned me that I think I maybe can take some pain, but you won't be able to take this kind of pain, and he was right. And so I went from being the toughest guy in the world to having a lot of fear about this hip, and then I finally went in to try to get this thing fixed and get it more secure so I can just go on with live a normal life and not have to worry about it popping out. But when they did cut my scar open to do replace the damaged, the parts that I did damage somehow, throughout the years, when they went to replace them, they cut my hip open, and well, they found nothing but a big mess of I don't know exact kind of infection it was. It might have been staph. We don't know yet. They're trying to get the results back, but I was just filled with infection throughout the whole body, and it kind of I was hoping to go in and get my hip fixed and get back on pace and move forward, but now it's everything's been changed because they put a temporary hip in there because they had to clean out all the staph, and now I'm going to be on an IV bag at home 3 times a day, trying to get rid of the infection so they can go back in there and get me a new hip, and then I got to go through the rehab again. And, it's got me down. I'm not going to deny that. But at the same time, I'm not complaining because I remember as a youngster, I always said I was going to be walking crooked when I'm older, but I just kind of hoped it wouldn't have been this severe, and I'm just dealing with it. And there is a lot of pain involved. There's been a lot of pain involved, but it comes with the territory. I didn't sign up to be a fighter, and, I don't want to go back to the cricket term again, but, I think the injuries are a little bit higher in wrestling and fighting, and I didn't sign up to be a fighter and not expect to come out of there with some battle wounds, and that's where I'm at right now. I'm just trying to get it back together and trying to get healthy again, trying to get my body healthy, and it's going to be a long hill to climb because this one really got me. It's pretty serious, and I just hope I can get rid of this infection and get the hip in there and start moving forward again.
Absolutely, Mark. Well, something that might, have made you feel a little bit better was when we first saw your GoFundMe page, guys. You got to go on it, GoFundMe.com/Save the Hammer. The donations were just over $4,000. Now they're around $20,000. How does it feel knowing that you have so many supporters out there, that really care about Mark the Hammer Coleman?
Well, it's just overwhelming. I've been so emotional throughout this whole thing, and I didn't even know nothing about this GoFundMe. Wes Sims has been there for me, from the beginning, and I tried to give back and help him as well. But I woke up from this surgery, didn't know nothing about it, and there's no denying it's a big setback, and I don't like. I like helping people. It's not so easy for me to get the help, but for Wes Sims to start this GoFundMe project, I didn't know much about it, but all of a sudden, yes, to see how many people that I don't even know. I don't think I could have met them all. I wish I would have been able to meet all these people, and I'm hoping someday maybe I can meet them and try to give back, and I do a lot of appearances, and it really just blows my mind that you can really make somebody's day just by taking a picture with them and being nice to them, and like you said, it just blows my mind how many people just started donating. Some people $5, some people $8, and these people don't owe me nothing, and I'm not going to deny, it's going to be needed and it's going to be used because it's going to be a very costly process here. But for somebody to send me $8, which obviously they probably could have used the $8 themselves, but they decided to send it to me. It's just hard to even comprehend, and I'm just really appreciative. I'm just blown away by the whole thing, and I just appreciate all these fans, and I'd rather call them friends than fans at this point.
Absolutely, Mark. And you're an absolute legend in the sport. We hope that you recover quickly and we hope everything works out. Guys, make sure to jump on Mark's GoFundMe account and give him what you can, $5 or $8, anything you can. Help out Mark. He's an absolute legend in the sport. We can't wait, to see you walking straight again, Mark. Guys, make sure to follow Mark on Twitter at Hammerhouse MMA. And we'll be checking in on you, Mark, making sure everything's going well. Thank you so much for taking the time for coming onto Submission Radio. It's been an absolute honor.
Well, thank you for having me, and hopefully I do get to make it over to, beautiful country of Australia. I've never made it, but I've heard a lot of good things about it, and you guys have a great rest of your day.